Oh, I've got to click.
Okay, ready to go live.
Ooh.
Okay, and we're live. Now, can I see myself? Let me just check. Oh, yes, here I am.
Yeah,
We're
I
live.
can see you.
Okay, we're live. So I don't need my Facebook on my phone. Great.
Are we on?
We are here. Welcome to series 2 of the Passionate Pioneer podcast. Hi, I'm Beth, your passionate pioneer. I'm obsessed with empowering women to design a life fueled by passion and purpose. Have you awakened to a deeper meaning in your life? Are you ready to chase your dreams? This is more than just a hangout. It's a springboard to break free from limitations and design the life you deserve. So let's get started. Today, I'd like to welcome my guest speaker, Denise Parker. Welcome, Denise.
Hello, hi Beth. And yeah, really happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me, and congratulations on getting all of this up and running.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a rocky start to 2024 for me, but yes, glad to be here. I'm so happy that season 2 is starting. So let me just give you a brief bio of Denise. Denise, drawing on her many years as a transformational coach and mentor, Denise weaves together the wisdom of nature, the power of intuition, and the principles of creativity to help her clients to go beyond what they think is possible and create results they love more naturally and effortlessly. Her passion for nature and wildlife and her journey into the wisdom and laws of deep nature have taken her on a magical path of synchronicity and opportunity. From working with orcas off the coast of Vancouver to becoming a ranger at the largest royal park in Britain and volunteering with rhinos at a conservation in Zimbabwe, Denise continues to follow her intuition, deepening her connection with nature, her own natural leadership, and the philosophy that to ignore the wisdom of nature would be most unwise. Love it. I love that, Dee. So tell me, what drove you to, what sparked your passion for what you do? Did you always know you wanted to pursue this dream, or was it a journey of discovery?
Yeah, it's funny really, because when I first thought about it, I thought it was a journey of discovery. But actually, when I look back, there were definitely some key signs along the way, signposts along the way. And you probably know, Beth, I used to work in the corporate world, so I worked in the world of finance and financial services, blue chip company, and at that point, it seems like another world. It seems like a different life. And at the time, I didn't know what I know now. And so I was just doing what I was doing. Um, but I was getting more and more to the point of this isn't me, this isn't it. I don't know what is, but it's not this. And I used to go to bed at night, sometimes wishing I'd wake up in the morning and a light bulb would go off and I'd suddenly get it. Um, and then fast forwarding, one thing happened, and we brought in a trainer to work with some of the people in our organization, and I was running the project. And part of what we were training them in was neurolinguistics. And I was going around the country with the trainer, and we would chat over dinner every night. And I suddenly went, this is it. This is what really ignites a spark in me, because it was all about discovery. It was all about learning more about ourselves, but it was also about helping and serving and supporting other people to find that in themselves. And so it just opened up a whole world of opportunity. And that's when I really started to come alive. And I can remember it now. And it was just like that. I don't know how, but that's what I want to get involved in. And long story short, I left the organization and I didn't know how I was going to get involved, but I somehow knew that I wanted to, and it was true. And I'd left my organization, but I thought, well, how can I get started as a trainer, as a coach? I haven't got the experience. And so I just sat down one day and I just looked at, well, what have I actually got? And where are the gaps? What do I not have? And then it was, okay, how can I fill these gaps? I thought, I know. So I got back to one of the people who trained me and I said, look, if I can find a client or two and run a training, would you come and co-train with me so I can be the apprentice and we can do it together? And so that's what happened. And so that's just one of the things that got me started on the path, on the journey of coaching, training, personal development, and really empowering others to discover their own truth, their own natural talents, and live from a more inspired way, live an inspired life.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the kickstart. That was the spark of discovery. And then over the years, I evolved. I trained with different trainers, learned different approaches, um, evolved my approach working with people, and then more recently, and might say a little bit more about this later. But I realized, or I was able, and I noticed I was rekindling a long forgotten passion for interest and animals and wildlife and weaving that into my work as well. Um, and that just happened by just taking the next step. It was like when I just focused on what I was really passionate about, things that I loved, opportunities started to come up, people started to show up. And I didn't know where it was all going necessarily. I didn't know how it was all going to fit together. But now I'm at a place where I am really bringing in nature, the laws of nature into the work that I do. So
Yeah, I love that.
yeah,
I love that
it's
you weave
unfolded.
the nature, and also the story of how you kept going to sleep at night thinking, God, there's got to be something else for me. I'm really not happy here. What? We have many of these. I call them spiritual turning points. And it's just where we have that moment of I think probably years ago we'd probably called it a midlife crisis, but it's deeper than that, isn't it? It's when you just think, gosh, there's something. Sometimes it can be something that happens in our life where we just say, gosh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to. Something's missing. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. There's something more for me. There's a bigger purpose out there. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but here's the spark. And that was the
Yeah,
spark for
yeah,
you, wasn't it? And you listened to that,
yeah,
where most
yeah.
of us would ignore it. And then 5 years later, we're still going, what's the message? Where's the message? We tried to message you, the university saying, we tried to give you the message 5 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Because
it's about
sometimes we just put
tuning in.
up, yeah, sometimes we just put up with it, don't we? We just accept, well, this is how it is. This is how life is. I've got to work and this is what I do. So I've just got to carry on doing this. And we just kind of carry on the same path without really looking further and outside and beyond.
Yeah. So it's just a case of being aware, isn't it? When you have that moment, it's that it's being aware of, okay, this is my, because most of us, like you said, we're just doing the same thing every day. We go to work, we come home, we watch the TV, we cook dinner, we go to work, we come home, and it's just about stopping and realizing and being aware. What am I actually doing? What am I achieving? Am I happy? Is this what I want? Am I, is this my purpose? Is there something bigger that I'm meant to do? Or, something happens and you're like, oh, it's being aware of it, isn't it? It's just self-awareness. And I think once you become self-aware, there's no stopping that then, because once you've seen something, you can't unsee it. Once you've realized something, that there's something bigger, the bigger purpose for you. You can't undo that then. Then you've got the choice. Okay, I'm either going to follow that or I'm going to stay here and be miserable or
Yeah,
just
and it
keep
really
spinning my
is.
wheel, right?
And it really is that, isn't it? That choice. It's remembering there is always a choice. We have a choice. We
Yeah.
don't just have this one path. We don't have to just stick to that one path.
Yeah. And I think that is, but I love the fact that you now weave nature and I weave nature into your coaching because and I see all the fantastic places that you go to and I see you immersed in nature and that is really dear to my heart because I moved to Italy, I live on a mountain, I'm immersed in nature. It's just incredible. Nature is incredible, and I think when most people live in cities, most people aren't aware of the huge benefits that nature gives us just by going for a walk in a park. People, oh, I went for a walk in the park and I felt so much better. I don't know why. It's,
Uh,
nature is just, it's that symbiotic. What's the words I'm looking for, Denise? Help me here. It's the symbiotic relationship that we have with
yeah.
nature. That it's
Well,
tell me, yeah, talk to
we
me.
are we are all part of nature.
Yeah,
We happen to be human beings as a species, and we happen to believe that we're more sophisticated, but then we create a sense of separation and we go and look at nature, we go and watch nature, but we're all part of nature anyway, aren't we? And, when we're in nature, when we connect in nature, we connect more deeply with our own nature as well. And that's a really powerful way of just letting go of all the distractions, all the thinking, all the stress, and just really being able to just be present with what is, with what's in us. And then that's when we create the space, isn't it? That's when we have space for our intuition to come in, to have insights about, yeah, what it is that might be true for us. What is a purpose? What is something that we love?
well, that's it.
It's
It's the self-awareness, it's the stopping, it's the being present. That's exactly right. Meditation is all about that, isn't it? It's about those moments where you just sit and you're in the present moment, you're aware. And I think that, self-awareness, especially for my clients, I'm sure it's for you, it's that moment of self-awareness, isn't it? Where they start thinking and then they start overthinking. Why am I thinking all of this? Oh my God, now I start seeing all of these things. I can't unsee them. And it's just about that. Okay, breathe. Stop, breathe. Let's look at the things that you love to do. And you're not necessarily, like you said, it's a journey of discovery sometimes, isn't it? But the moment that you stop and you become self-aware of what you want and what's available and what you've been doing that's not working for you and what will work for you going forward. But yeah,
and that's
you're all
yeah.
about the following your instincts and aren't you? The same.
Yeah. Well, partly going into nature, as you talk about, being present, it's when we stop, when we get still, when we can really listen and be present, that's when we can connect with what is it that's true? What is my body telling me? What would I really love? And, we can try and do that when we're sitting at a desk. We can try and do it when we're reading a book. But when we're in nature, there are just so many examples of things that just stop us in our tracks. We access that state of being in awe or wonder. And that really is the moment when all our day-to-day habits just melt away
Yeah,
and we're able to just be with the tree, with a flower, with a landscape.
yeah,
And it just connects us in a very different way.
yeah,
And we get to sense as well that, wow, we really are part of something bigger. There really is something magnificent. And we're part of that. So what else becomes possible?
yeah,
And it takes us then beyond just what we believe is possible and really connect with what else we can create. So it inspires a lot of creativity. And that's what I find with clients and for myself as well. it really does inspire ideas, insights, and creativity as well.
Yeah, well, look, I look outside my window because of where I live. I'm so lucky. Am I lucky? I don't know. I put myself here. I chose this, right?
Created it. Mm.
Created this, yeah. So um luck is about what we create our own luck, don't we? Create our own thoughts and life. And what I'm what I want to say really is that when I look outside my window at the moment, there's all of that beauty of nature. It's all starting to come alive again. It's spring, right? There's buds on the trees, there's blossoms on the tree. For 3 months we've got winter. And so after, you've got autumn, and then everything strips back to nothing. You have to look at nature sometimes to get inspiration and say, okay, well, if nature can strip way back to like nothing, and then start to slowly build again, that's exactly what we can do, right? And it's that
Yeah.
moment of stripping everything back to the basics. But then when you look at what you're creating, what nature is creating, and what I see when I look outside my window, it's just amazing, to see everything starting to grow again and blossom, and it's new breathe, nature's breathing new life into things. And I feel sometimes that's how we feel, isn't it? We come out
Yeah,
of like
absolutely.
hibernation in winter, and we go into this, we start creating spring. Oh, the sun is here.
Yeah.
Things are
Well, here
starting
we
to
are.
grow, right? Here we are, right? This is, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've had this conversation with a number of clients recently, and also I've noticed it in myself how with spring we all seem to have more of a spring in our step. We've got
Yes.
more energy, we're more focused on our creations, things are starting to come together. There does seem to be a lot of momentum. And when we look at nature, as you're saying, nature naturally flows in seasons and cycles. There are endings and beginnings.
Right.
And that's a really powerful message for us, isn't it? Because sometimes, if we're thinking about taking a leap away from a job, or if something's falling away, falling apart, we can take it personally, we can get stressed, we can get anxious. And yet, when we look at it in the greater scheme, the bigger picture, and remember that, well, we're just like part of nature. Yes, things have to fall away for new things to come in. The leaves have to fall from the trees for the new blossoms to come the following season.
Yeah.
And if we hold on, if we keep holding on, we don't grow, do we? We just wither and
Yeah.
shrink, and we just stay stuck where we are.
Yeah. We stay in winter mode and we don't ever get to spring. And yeah. Yeah. Um, Tell me what role models, or network, or support, because I always find that it's the support that you need on a journey like this when you are stepping into something new, stepping into spring, let's call it that, right? Um, and it's everything's new. So what when you were stepping away from the corporate and stepping into something new, what role models or mentors inspired you on your journey, or how important were they?
Mm. Well, one or two in particular were, as I mentioned earlier, when I invited one of my teachers to come and co-train and I could be the apprentice. So she really supported me a lot. Sadly, she's no longer with us, but she was just an amazing role model and mentor, and really gave me a lot of support, a lot of encouragement as well. So that really, really made a big difference for me. Because if I hadn't had that, if she hadn't been by my side, maybe I'd have just kept putting it off. Maybe I'd have believed that I didn't have it in me to start because I didn't have the experience at that time.
Yes.
So that made a massive difference. And then along the way, just a number of different teachers, because as I say, my approach and I've been evolving and growing over the years. And so the different teachers have really made a big difference. So I feel really lucky, privileged to have worked with some really great teachers. Um, and then working with a coach, a mentor,
Yeah.
has been really powerful because they get to, we both coach and mentor others. And, for me, having a coach, they get to see things in me that, I'm blinkered to.
Yeah.
and somebody else can see the gold in us, they can see the magic in us that we're not fully aware of or present to in ourselves. So having people feedback to me what they see in me has been really powerful.
Right.
And yeah, just lots of different people, and friends and community and connections and support. Because one thing that's really important, one thing I noticed, because I was leaving a corporate world with teams and structures and staff and everything else, and going it alone.
Yeah.
But actually, we're not alone, are we? We don't create on our own. And just even if you're going to be self-employed, you don't have to do it all on your own.
Right.
So I joined quite a few networking groups as well.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of different communities I've been part of.
Right.
Um, and yeah, a combination of communities, coaches, and teaching.
Yeah, I was the same, Dee. I think a lot of us feel like we're just lone wolves most of the time.
Mm,
And I think it's really important when you're stepping away from that, that type of job where you've got all of the support and you've got the different departments and you're going it alone, you're doing something, maybe you want to be an entrepreneur and do it for yourself, that, all of a sudden you do have to wear all of the hats. And it's really important that you do get that support. And I like you, I had, immediately within 2 months, I think I had a coach. And then from there, other coaches, and then from there, other women who, just like me,
mm,
following their passions, looking for their purpose, following the breadcrumbs. Um,
yeah,
and and together we've supported each other over the years. Um,
yeah, you do.
you build that network, and then you see people, I see these other women, and I'm just so happy for them. I'm happy to support them, and I'm happy to that they come to me for advice. What do you think, Beth? And I just, and then and vice versa, and they become like your extended family, because you really need that. And I think you need that in life as women. We definitely need that. We we have this, many years ago that we didn't have that so much, but now I think it's more important than ever that we have this community of women supporting women. I think it's really important.
It is. And I think it's so important. It's so precious actually. It's
Yeah.
a real gift to have, isn't it, when you have those connections and we can support each other and and celebrate each other as well. We're not competing with each other, we're celebrating each other, and that's just really beautiful, isn't it? And
Yes.
again, if we think back to nature, we might be one tree in an entire forest, but we're part of the whole forest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we look at animals in the wild, they don't survive on their own. They're all part of herds and packs. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, we're no different, are we, really?
No, it's true. It's true. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why, when I moved to Italy, I wanted to form do these retreats and have these communities of women. And it's very slow. It's just happened very slow. What's happened in the meantime is that I've created an online community, which is amazing. So what you said before, sometimes things don't happen the way you want them to happen.
Mm.
It's exactly what happened to me. I came here to create these retreats and to create these communities, and everything went online. And so that's what's happened for me, is I've created these beautiful communities, the podcast being one of them, um, of women who are following their passion and their purpose and whatever that means to them. And that's why one of the things I've done recently, and now I'm focusing more on, is the Passionista Society, which is a membership for women. And that's spurred on from the podcast from series one. So I've just taken that and I'm saying, okay, I'll just make that into, I'll take everybody I know and put them in one place, because it makes it this community of women that can support each other in one place. And
Yeah, brilliant. And what I love there as well is it wasn't all necessarily planned, was it? You did one thing and then it led to another thing and then it
yeah,
led to another thing. So
yeah,
I think for a few of us during the previous few years, a lot of things have gone online, haven't they? And I
yeah,
know I've been coaching with clients online and working with groups online. And in a way, it's really helped because it's saved people a lot of time. But it's also really lovely to come together face to face as well when you get that chance. And
yeah.
that's why I love taking people into nature. Um, as groups, we'll go for wanders and connect with the magic of nature. And yeah, running retreats in nature and the natural world as well. And it's just really, really magical as well as really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, that is part of my goal for the membership is that we will have retreats and they will be in nature, either here or somewhere else, but we will definitely be in nature because I know how precious that is to me and how important it is for me.
Yeah. I'll have to
Um,
come over, Beth, and see you.
well, I know, right?
Mm.
I'll have to organize something at some point when this is the start of my 2024 D, right? 2024, Denise, right? It is totally the start of my 2024. This is my new year. Doesn't
Well,
matter.
Happy New Year.
Absolutely, exactly
Happy
right.
New Year,
Exactly.
Beth.
It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter when you start it, right? Some people say your year starts with your birthday.
Yeah, well, we can choose. We can choose any. There are lots of different faiths, different cultures, for instance, that have different days, different New Years. So yeah, just make it up. Choose your own.
Exactly. Mine starts now, April.
Mm.
So happy new year to me. So let me ask you, what was the biggest leap of faith that you took to pursue your dreams? Was that was following probably that was the following the guide from your corporate when you stepped in from away from your corporate? That's probably the biggest leap of
That
faith.
was probably the most yeah, it was probably the biggest, and it was probably the biggest for a couple of reasons. One is I really stepped out of one world into another
Right.
world. I didn't even know what the other world was going to be exactly. And also it was bigger because I didn't know back then what I know now. I didn't have the tools and the skills then that I have now. So it made it even bigger.
Right.
Um, and so it was, yeah, that was a leap of faith. And it's interesting as well because there was a big reorganization going on in the company,
Right.
um, and they were changing the structure. And it was one of those where you're going to have to reapply for your job potentially, or maybe have a different role. And the very first thing, my first instinct, this is before I knew what I know now about intuition, but my first intuitive insight then was, great, this is my chance to leave and go. And then I didn't quite trust it. And so I stayed a little bit longer because we were all being asked to reapply for our jobs. And I almost stayed in the structure. And then I became ill and I couldn't actually start the new job. And then I remembered I didn't want it anyway. And so
Right. Right.
I remember thinking, there's something going on here. But it
Right.
was a wake up. It was a wake up for me to go, hang on, you were supposed to be, you got an intuitive insight. This was
Redirection.
your chance.
The
Don't
universe.
blow it.
The
Yeah, it
universe
was like somebody
redirecting
had
you.
opened the cage door and it was my time to get out of the cage.
Right. I
So
love it. Love it.
so that was the big leap. And it was a big leap because I was leaving a company that I'd worked for a few years. It was an industry I knew. I had a career, I was doing well, knew lots of people. And of course the perceived security, the salary,
Huh.
it's hard to let go of that because it feels so important, even though you and I know a lot of that's perception anyway, but it felt like security. It felt like giving up security and leaping into a world where it was a complete unknown, because I really didn't know at that point what I was going to do. And, people kept asking me, so what are you going to do, Denise? Have you got another job yet? And I'd be saying, no, I'm just looking, I'm just looking. And I would just go off on trips and things to stop, to get away from having to answer these questions about what was I going to do. And, and two things happened there. I had another spark. I saw this advert. It was a tiny little article, tiny little post in a Sunday newspaper. And it was about an Earthwatch trip. And Earthwatch run these expeditions all around the world. And this trip was to go and work at the research centre for killer whales off the coast of Vancouver. And I saw it and I just went, that's it. That's what I've got to do. And so that was the start of my reconnecting with the wild nature and the natural world. So I went on that trip. And then while I was there, I thought, oh, I'm going to have to go back and get a job. And I didn't want to. And I came back and people were asking me, have you got a job yet? And I was going, no, not yet. And you know what? I used to buy the Times newspaper on a Thursday because they had jobs which were completely unsuitable for me. But at least I could say to people, yeah, I'm looking at the job ads. But meanwhile, I was exploring all these other things around personal development and nature and yeah, I managed to find a path. And that's when I asked the teacher to come and, co-train with me. And that set me off on the path
Right.
that was true for me. But
Yeah,
but it
that's
was a leap of
interesting.
faith because none of that was known, none of it was planned.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
interesting because I was in Vancouver also, and I used to when I went to work on the cruise ships, and that for me was following my instincts, which I didn't know at the time. People that know me know that story of, when I was 26, I decided it was enough, and I wanted to go and work. That was my one of my biggest spiritual turning points, and then the other one was much later, um, which is the coaching and the teaching. But the first one was to get out of England for me, and
Right.
and to go traveling. And I went to the library because in those days we didn't have, you know, Google,
Yeah,
cell phones and things
I
like that.
know.
Right? Very old school. And so I went to the library, and I'd never been to the library. I didn't even know where it was in my town. I didn't even know where it was. I went, and I've never been again since. It's the only time I went. And to look for just to find some information about cruise ships, because a friend of mine said she was on cruise ships and blah blah blah. And I went, and of course there were all these articles everywhere, and the rest is history. I mean, I signed up and I went, and I went to many places on the cruise ships, and it was a wonderful experience. And yeah, how did you feel in Vancouver with
Oh,
the orcas?
it
Because
was
it's incredible, right?
just, it was
Mm.
just incredible. I remember, so I flew into Vancouver and then we had to get the boat plane across to Vancouver Island.
Right,
And
right.
I remember just sitting on the harbour and there was a seal in the water and it was just like, oh, this is just so magical. And
Yeah.
then we'd be on the island researching the orcas. And I remember one day, there were just two of us plus the lead professor, the researcher, and we were on this boat and we were recording the sounds of the orcas. So we had microphones in the water in the ocean, and we were just going along on the boat. And the other two people, they were both looking forwards, and they could see in the distance some orcas in the distance. I was at the back of the boat, and I just looked over my shoulder and I couldn't speak or scream or squeal because we were recording. But I just went, because this huge orca was just coming right up out of the water
Reaching.
and it blew all the water out of its blowhole. And I got a shower of this horrible, putrid smelling stale fish. But I've never been so thrilled in all my
Yeah.
life. It was just amazing. And I met just some really lovely people. And it was like a watershed. It was like, this is it. I've left that old world and there's a whole new world out here, and it's full of, joy and wonder and magic and being alive. So yeah, it was amazing. And a funny thing happened because I did that trip with Earthwatch, and then 2 or 3 years ago, they got back in touch with me because it was their 50th anniversary, and they were creating a book, and they were getting in touch with people, some researchers, scientists, but also some of the volunteers. And they wanted to include 50 people in the 50th anniversary book. And so they got in touch with me, and they were just asking about my story, a bit like we're doing here. And they said, "Oh, that sounds really interesting. We'd love to include you in the book." So
Nice.
I ended up being in their book, and now I've stayed connected with them again. And we've been out planting tiny forests in urban areas around London to try and bring green space, woodland, wildlife, and that nature connection back into towns and cities.
I saw that. I saw that you've been doing those tiny forests. I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, it looks incredible. So
Yeah.
because I was saying about cities that people, that there's not enough green space in cities.
Mm,
And it's really nice that you're doing that, bringing the tiny forests, I like that, tiny forests,
yeah,
into these urban areas. That's fantastic. It must
it
be
is.
an
It really
exciting
is.
project.
Yeah, it's a really fantastic project to be part of. And also, it's just another example of, the connections you make and the relationships and the friends that you create when you step out and you stay connected with people who are, like-minded, similar passions, similar purpose. And so you co-create, don't you? Co-create together, collaborate and connect. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Right. So let me ask you, have you had to make any sacrifices along the way? And how did you decide what was worth letting go of?
Mm. I think for me, the biggest, I think it was more of a perceived sacrifice than a real sacrifice, because I think, the perceived sacrifice was I was sacrificing security, salary,
Yeah,
being sensible and professional. It felt like I was giving all of that up to
right.
go and be a little bit reckless and flaky and not know what the hell I was
I
doing.
don't think those are your words, Denise. I think that's probably the words that were thrown at you, right? Reckless
Yeah.
and
And it was, yeah. So it felt like I was sacrificing security.
right.
Yeah. Um, and yet it's interesting because security, as we know, it's only ever a perception, isn't it? Because when we're self-employed, it can feel very insecure, but then somebody in a job can suddenly be told the job's over.
Yeah,
And so our perception of security doesn't reflect what's true. And so even though it felt like a bit of a sacrifice at the time, it wasn't really, because over the years I've developed and learned and created so many more skills and tools and resources that gives us all more security, doesn't it? Because our security comes from within. Um, so yes, it felt like a sacrifice, but wasn't really a sacrifice. And I also got to, have a lot more freedom, a lot more choice. Um, yeah, I'm just thinking, was there anything else I sacrificed? But again, it was a perception of, perception
yeah,
of security and money. I think that's the main thing.
yeah. But
Yeah.
you've also talked about, the things that, like security is a perceived. Uh,
Mm,
it's something we perceive because you could just lose a job. You could be in a job and you could just be fired tomorrow, or the company restructures and you've got to reapply for your job. We live in a very unstable, it's an unstable economy, an unstable world at the moment, and then that could happen, right? So, do you have any practical tips or techniques that you use to stay motivated and inspired when external pressures or expectations conflict? So
mm.
exactly
And there
that.
are
So
a few of
this,
those, aren't there?
yes, absolutely, right? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yes, we all know that the world's a bit unpredictable at the moment. And those external pressures sometimes can feel quite quite intense. Um, and so for me, I suppose, what do I do to stay motivated and inspired? It's really about remembering, and it's really about refocusing and staying focused on what it is I love, what it is I do love, and what it is that I want to create. So it's really having a focus, and some of the work that I do, it's really important to have some kind of vision or end result
Mhm.
that we are moving towards, that we're creating. And I don't just mean an egoic goal, but something that's come from the heart, something that's come intuitively, something that's more purposeful and meaningful and joyful, something
Right.
that's true. And so, when outside pressures interfere, when my own internal dialogue starts to interfere, it's about recognizing, okay, put that aside. Our thoughts, our feelings, our fears are not a reflection of reality, and refocus. What is it that's true? What is it that I love? Um,
Yeah.
and keep choosing that. And then the second part of that, I suppose, is to really let go of all the fears, the thoughts, the feelings, and refocus on what's my intuition telling me.
Yeah.
So when again, going into nature can really help. It's about stopping, pausing, getting really still, and just asking, so what's really true? What's really obvious? And acting and taking action on my intuition.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Like
I
that.
mean, we
That's
use a
another.
lot of creative tools as well, which perhaps is for another conversation. But yeah, being guided, because as women as well, not just as women, but as women, we have a strong intuition. We have an inner knowing, and often we don't listen to it, or we deny it, or we don't trust it. But when we really listen and act on that, as you have as well, that's when we get to follow our path.
Yeah.
My actions I've taken to volunteer with animals and do things in nature. My head, my rational mind makes up, what are you doing that for? That's a distraction. You're meant to be building a business. But I follow it because it's true,
Yeah.
and it's come together as part of my business anyway.
Yeah,
So
the most random, acts that you take, you just follow your joy, right? Um, Joseph Campbell said, "Follow your bliss." I mean, and it's that's all well and good. Sometimes you do have to be a bit practical, but follow what you love to do, and that will always lead you into the next thing and the next thing. Just follow that. Oh, I want to go and plant these tiny forests. Let me go and work on
mm,
that. I want to let's go to Vancouver and volunteer for the Orcas. And then the next thing and the next thing, and it's just about following. We get too wrapped up, I think, in our own heads, don't we? Of
oh yeah,
what can go wrong? Oh, if I do that, oh, that could go wrong, and that could go wrong. And well, I tried that before and it didn't work. We just too wrapped up in external pressures and what other people will think and our own perception. And instead of tuning, like you said, tuning into your heart, what's really important to me, what brings me joy. When I think about this podcast, I told you this one's going live, the series 2. And I'm so nervous, but I'm so excited at the same time. This brings me so much joy to be the facilitator of women's stories, and how other women followed those steps and followed their intuition. And I love to hear that. I love to hear
mm,
that. I love to empower and inspire other women. I hope they're listening, and they'll be inspired and they'll take the next step,
yeah. And
right?
it's really just taking the next step, isn't it? That's another
Yeah.
thing I try and remember. It's
Yeah.
is letting go of needing to know
Mhm.
how it's all going to work out. If I'm going to go and volunteer looking after a herd of cows for 6 weeks, just let go of how that's ever going to help me in my business. Just let go of why and just go with it. And yeah, let it unfold. Let it unfold.
Okay,
Because we
so
try and control, we try and plan, we try and map it all out and work it all out. But when we can let go of all of that and just go, no, it feels true. My heart, my intuition, this is where it's taking me. it will always serve you, won't it?
Absolutely. So saying that then, what are some things that you're still learning about yourself and your goals?
Yeah. Well, well, one thing that I have learned and I'm still, frequently being reminded of is that we all have a dysfunctional aspect to ourself. We have an ego, we have an unconscious, we have we have a limited sense of self. And that's the part that always wants to keep us safe, hold us back, stop us going for what's true. And as mine, some of my traits, when I go for something that I really love, I see it kicks in. There's a part of me that just wants to hold back. There's a part of me that wants to give up and not bother. There's a part of me that wants to compromise and stay safe and small. And so I see that. And sometimes it will kind of drag me off track for a bit, but it's like, no, I see you. I see you. This is the way I'm going. So that's part of the learning, just seeing more and more how my resistance, that's what it is, isn't it? We all have resistance.
Yeah.
Just seeing how my resistance shows up. Um, and also seeing where it would want to take me and realizing, no, that's not for me. Sometimes my ego makes it, oh, just don't bother, just settle, stick with where you're at. But if I stop and look and go, if I imagine just being here, doing this for the rest of my life, is that what I really want? Then no, there's something else. The other thing I suppose I've learned really is that, in terms of goals, results, creating end results, the other thing I've learned is, magic really does happen. It really can be effortless. It really can be magical. When we really hold the vision, when we really stay in the unknown, things happen that are, beyond what we would have thought. Me running a retreat at a rhino conservation in Africa, who'd have thought? I never would have planned that, but
Right.
it's all come about because I followed my intuition. And it ended up being more than I would have imagined.
Yeah.
So that's the other part that I've learned as well.
Right. Lovely. Yeah. Yeah. The magic, the magic where the magic happens is, for me, the magic has happened between passion and purpose, for having something that you love and then following that and letting it unfold. Getting out
Mm.
of the way, basically, right?
Getting out the way,
Getting out of the
yeah.
way and just taking the next step. Yeah.
Seeing how we get in the way in order to get out of the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So how do you define success in the context of your dreams and goals?
Mm. Well, I suppose, high level, how success for me is really when I have that sense that, yeah, I'm on my path. I'm not doing it for somebody else. It's not somebody else's journey. I'm on my journey. I'm really enjoying life, having a lot of joy, having a lot of magic, having a lot of freedom, um, really having that sense that, what I'm doing is aligned, is a good fit. There's not that sense of, oh, shall I, shan't I? It's just, yeah, it just feels true. And so when things are happening, when things are falling into place, um, when I'm creating and making progress, and it really does feel as though I'm in flow, and it really does feel effortless, and synchronicities happen, and magic happens, then for me that's success really, because all of that is an indication that I'm on the right path, I'm on the true path, and I'm not getting caught up in all the ego stuff and the effort. It takes a lot more effort to not create
Yeah.
than to create. All the effort we can put into worrying and working out and stressing, it's a lot of effort. But
Yes.
when we're just focused and flowing and things are falling into place and we're acting from there, we're carried in a way.
Well,
So
that's it. You think you've just, nailed it there, right there, isn't it? It's when you're on the right path, everything flows. When you're
mm,
going against the grain and nothing's, you keep banging your head against a brick wall, and things, you keep going in this direction. You really want it to happen like this, and it's just, and you keep,
mm.
it's not happening, and you're banging your head and you're banging your head, and after a while, you're like, okay, I guess that's not the right direction,
Yeah, you get the
right?
message
Right? Get the
eventually.
message, right?
Yeah.
So it is about getting in the flow, and it is about, what do I really want? And even if that means how is going to manage a herd of cows for a month going to help me in my business? I don't know, but it feels right. Let's go with
Yeah.
it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing as well. What is success for me? It really is when I'm following my intuition, when I'm acting on that, and it keeps, when I keep receiving intuitive insights and acting, and it keeps unfolding. That's a measure of success. And also when I'm doing something that feels meaningful and purposeful, and often that's about being of service to somebody else, to other people, to animals and nature for me, and wildlife. But, being part of something bigger and contributing to something bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's the way I feel. That's why I love being there, doing this podcast and being the
Yeah.
facilitator, creating communities and giving a place, giving women a space and a place to tell their story. It just empowers us. But I don't have to do anything. I just provide the space,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. And
Um,
it's great.
yeah, and I just love it. It just brings me so much joy. So what's the most unexpected benefit you've gained from pursuing your dreams?
Well, looking
So
after a
many,
herd of
so
cows for
many. We're
6
just
weeks.
we're just listening. Do we have time to list all of them? I don't know.
Uh, I think one is, was it unexpected? I'm not sure, but some of the people I've met, the friendships, the connections, the collaborations, that's been really lovely. Um, and the magical, the synchronicities, the invitations, the opportunities. Um, and really, I suppose one, if I just picked one, it's it's how I've brought together and how it's come together two things that I'm really passionate about in my life. So I was passionate about my business, coaching, supporting people to live their truth and connect with their true nature and follow their passion and purpose. And I also loved nature and animals, but I never saw the two as being one. I always kept them separate. And so to now be able to bring together both of those in a powerful way, that's been unexpected. And it just gives me so much joy. And one of the things I noticed was when I started sharing things about nature and animals and wildlife, I was just doing it because I loved it. My rational mind was going, people are going to think you're an idiot. You're supposed to be a professional, but people resonated with
Here she
it.
is planting a tiny forest, looking after a herd of cows. Nothing wrong with her.
Yeah. So that would be the unexpected
Right,
benefit, being
right.
able to bring together all the things that I love
Yeah,
and for that to have purpose. Yeah,
very
really
good.
special.
Nice, nice. So, what do you hope your story will inspire in other women who are listening?
Mm. Well, I guess perhaps one of the things is to really remember, really be open to the possibilities, um, to really be curious and not need to have it all worked out, but just to know that in each of us there is something. There's something that we can express in the world, create in the world. There's something that's true for us in the world. And we don't have to have it all figured out, but just knowing that and then choosing to be curious and explore and take those steps. Um, and choosing to be delighted, choosing to just be filled with joy when you discover what else is available. um And then I guess another thing is to remember that, we're all creators. We are creative. Just as nature is constantly creating and unfolding, we're constantly creating and unfolding as well. And so just wherever you're at today doesn't have to be where you're at tomorrow. There's always something to create.
The only thing that's constant is change.
Yeah. And just going back to nature again, nature's constantly
Yeah, yeah,
flowing,
yeah.
seasons and cycles.
Yes.
When we connect with that nature in ourselves, we can connect with what it is we love, what's true for us to create in the world, bring to life in the world. And as I said, as you said at the beginning, to ignore the wisdom of nature would be most unwise. Nature was here long before we were here. It'll be here
Absolutely.
long after we're
Long
gone. It
after.
knows a lot more. There's a lot of wisdom in
Yes,
nature, and there's a lot of wisdom in us as well.
absolutely. Yeah. Untapped wisdom, right?
Yeah,
That wisdom.
yeah.
Okay, so let's finish with just one last question. Final question. What is the one lasting message you want to leave with the audience about chasing their dreams?
Well, one thing just on that word, yeah, we can be chasing our dreams, but sometimes that can start to feel stressful. But if we choose to create our dreams,
Ah,
we choose to acknowledge that our dreams are there for a reason. Your dreams are different from my dreams.
mhm.
Our dreams communicate with us perhaps our purpose, what we'd love to bring to life, what we'd love to create. And so choosing to be the creator, choosing to create your dreams, and really choosing to act in favor of those without, as we said before, without needing to know, without having to have a plan, without even needing to feel confident, without even trusting it's all going to happen, but just